Can you guys actually hear me? Okay. I've never been a speaker before. You're gonna probably be able to tell that really quickly. Um, but yeah, I recognize a lot of you from being our guinea pigs last night. That was the first time we tried to do anything like that, and so I appreciate you guys helping us out and doing it with us, and I hope you enjoyed it. So, let's see, next slide. Yes, I'm gonna play a little bit. Okay, so what I'm gonna talk about today is basically how we made this and why we made it. So I figured that's as good a thing to talk about as anything. What we do at Icon is we help artist friends express themselves in digital, and what we're trying to do is figure out what's special about the technology, what is special about the artist, and then join the two together so that we can form a deeper connection between their fans and them. We want to get something more than the base level. So we just got this new HTC headset, live headset, and we saw Shigeto was on the speaker list. So Heidi was kind enough to hook us up with him, and he was really into the idea of doing collaboration. So this is going to be the story of our process, how we collaborate, and also how we use new technology and figure out what to do with it, how to be creative with new technology. Okay, this is going to make the next slide appear, I think. Yes. Okay, so we're going to do a step-by-step process. We're going to talk about adopting new technology, what goes into it, what goes into bringing an idea into the world. We'll go through brainstorming, what influences decisions, how we make choices. And basically, we're going to start with nothing, which is what we had when Heidi called us, and we're going to end up with what you guys saw last night. So this is the process of making this specific thing, but you really could use this to apply to making any kind of product. It's not unique to this. Okay, getting started. We have 4 questions. It seems like everybody had 4 or 3 things that you had to do, which is the perfect things to do. So I also have my 4 things. I think I don't actually realize that they exist until after I've done the project, and then I go back and say, how did we do this actually? But these, if you do them, it's pretty good. So first, you have to choose a goal. That's pretty basic. What technology are we going to use? So this could be anything. What is our message? This is a really interesting one because I think that if you are going out and trying to make something for somebody, it has to be special. It has to have some form of uniqueness, some reason for being. And then finally, what is the user experience? So what are users getting out of it? What does it look like? So this could be anything from UI to branding. And in our case, it is the crazy stuff you saw flying around last night. Okay, our goal. So we already know what the goal is. It's to create a musical VR experience that will be performed at Intermitten last night. And okay, so that's pretty broad, and we're going to try to focus it a little more, but I'm going to skip ahead. So our technology, we also know what that is. It's the HTC Vive. And what we do when we get new technology is that we start experimenting with it. So any technology, it could be Google Maps, social APIs, facial recognition, virtual reality, whatever it is, you want to experiment with it, and it's really waiting for you to put it to work. It's not that good on its own. It needs you. So we're going to start playing and figure out what is special. Yes, play. Okay, good. So playing with the technology itself can be inspirational. you realize how you can use it in new ways, what's unique about it, how can I use this to fit my own goals. It's also really fun for us to be there at the start of the new technology, because at that point nobody knows what they're doing, and so nobody knows the right way to do it. And as soon as everybody knows the right way to do it, then there's rules and businesses form around it, and all of a sudden it has to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the checklist. But when it's brand new, we can just kind of be crazy and experiment. So when I first saw Google Earth, I was working with the Beastie Boys, and I was wondering, could we drive their cop car around Google Earth? And ultimately, it was my goal to jump their cop car off of the Himalayas. I was able to do it, but it took me a long time to drive there from San Francisco, which is where it started. So, yeah, but it was fun. So, this idea obviously isn't going to change the world, like some of the ideas people have been talking about today. But when you're thinking about your client or your message, this is a different way of interacting with a song in our case. And so playing with things brings you closer to them. You think about them in different ways, and you think about them more. All right. Let's see. Boom. Okay. The HTC Vive virtual reality headset is our new technology. It uses room scale technology to turn a room into a 3D space via sensors, according to Wikipedia. Okay. But what that means is that you could walk. I saw a lot of the speakers walking around. You could tell I'm reading my notes, but because I know this line, you can walk around in real space. This is probably going to be my only one. You can, you can walk around in real space, but in place of this real world, you'd be walking around in a world of our creation. So as a designer, this is like completely mind-blowing to me, because it means basically that I don't have to have everybody else's vision of the world anymore. I can be a complete control freak and obsessive compulsive and design the world exactly how I want it to be. Yeah, so that kind of blows my mind. I feel like, that's a real fun technology to start playing with. Yes. Okay, so here are some things that we discovered when we were playing around with the Vive. That's all right. With the Vive, basically, you can move around in real space, and you can program haptic feedback. And what that means is that when you touch things in the virtual environment, you're going to get feelings in your hands because you're holding the controllers. So it offers some resistance, and it makes things feel more real in that space. What we also found was that the best thing about it was not just clicking buttons and seeing things happen, but the act of exploration. So we want to make things that are different from other, websites and apps, other things out there. We want to use the technology in a way that it can be unique. So we also found that when you get in there, you're completely immersed. And so more than any other technology I've ever used, you forget about the real world, and you are just looking at this one thing, and you're focused on this one message. So, I think you could apply that in so many ways. But when you're thinking about music, being completely focused on this musical experience, it brings you closer to the artist and hopefully to their meaning. Okay, so I start taking keywords down, while I'm working, and then later I kind of put everything together and figure out what I'm going to make. So a couple of my keywords for this are, it's a new environment, I like the exploration, and I like touching things in there. So now we have a goal, and and we have some tech. And now, can you hear when I go like that? Turn my head this way. Okay. Now we're going to talk about our message. So for a musician, this could be like, what's the song about, or who's the artist? What's the brand? It could be like, what's the government position? It could be anything you're working on, anything you're thinking about. What do you stand for, and what are you trying to say? Every choice that you make when you're working on your project should support the message. So you should be able to hold up your choices to the message and say, is this right? And, is what I'm doing now like supporting my theory? And that could go for anything. It could be for building a business too. Every time you make choices, you want to keep going forward and not go against what your idea is. So we're going to use research to figure out what our message is. So anytime we take on a new project, we try to understand them, understand their style, try to figure out what makes them special and why their fans like them. So a few years after starting the company, we were asked if we wanted to build the new Madonna website. I was like, oh, yeah, okay. Well, I think we could do that. We're kind of all dancing around the room, listening to the call on speakerphone, and, started blasting Borderline. There's a lot of things in my head that, if they were on TV, would be so incriminating, I guess. But, but the same as I would do today, I start with research. And of course, we knew all the music. She is a superstar. Everybody knows who she is. But we spent hundreds of hours poring over every single photo that we could find of her, reading message boards, trying to figure out what fans like about her, reading news stories, and trying to understand what's special about her. So when we were working on this project, it got to the point where I was just dreaming about her every night. Like, everything was like, Madonna this, Madonna did that. I would tell my wife in the morning, what you did. So, yeah, it was all cool. It was a very professional relationship. She's an amazing performer. She has tons of #1 hit songs, so that's really special. But there are other people like that. There's not a lot of other people like that, but it doesn't really say anything about her. So what we found eventually is, or our premise, the conclusion we came to was that she was all about evolution. And throughout her very long career, she's constantly evolved musically, and she's totally dedicated to fashion. And so her look has been always dramatically different. So what are we going to do with it? I guess we could make a photo gallery of her images, but that might not be enough, I think. So we were saying, like, how can we use technology to better evoke this? So what we created was the Madonna timeline, Madonna 3D timeline. And this basically allowed you to experience the phases of her career visually in a way that you couldn't do before. It's a different way of presenting information to people in a way that hopefully lets them get closer. Yeah, so thanks to the, I guess, temporality of the World Wide Web, I have but a few animated GIFs to remember all my projects. You can't. But that's okay, because I'm moving forward all the time. Okay, so basically I'm going to apply the same process to Shigeto. Who is he? We know he's an electronic musician. Zach Saginaw from Ann Arbor. He spoke here, he performed here last night. But is this really enough information to create an experience for him? What do you think about if I say create an experience for an electronic musician? Is it, I don't know, do you guys have any ideas, like glow lights or disco balls or something like that? I think, to make a meaningful connection, it needs to have a message. So, of course, we do the same thing. We listen to all his albums, we read interviews, and we watch the videos. So here's a few quotes from him. Right here in this NPR quote, he says what his music is. It's instrumental, electronically produced music that is jazz and hip hop influenced. Okay, that's a really great start. So now we have a starting point. But then he has this other quote. It's all about improvisation and communication between the audience and the performer. So I really love this quote. It gives me something to hold on to, and I'm going to add it to my goal. So we had as a goal, we want to create a musical VR experience to be performed at Intermitten. But we're going to change that a little bit. And now we want to create a musical VR experience that allows communication between the audience and the performer. So that's a more solid goal. And it's also something that, he said it, it's right out of his mouth. I think he's going to like it. All right. Here's a couple other quotes. First and foremost, I'm a drummer. And you can see him in there doing his thing. But then this other quote I like too. I guess technically I started on GarageBand. Then I got into Reason. And so now we're starting to see two sides of him. On one side is this analog jazz drummer using these really organic sounds. And the other side is this electronic musician. And he's using digital tools to sequence the sounds. Okay. Here's another one. So we read tons of articles. I have lots of highlighted things. But certain words keep popping up there and sticking with me. So I'm seeing real-world sounds. The digital and analog keeps coming up for me. One description I read said organic sonic landscape. And that was like very intriguing to me. And I thought we can really run with that. So I'm going to take this stuff and make my message out of these key words. So we're going to create a new environment, an organic sonic landscape that fans can explore and touch, where digital patterns control analog ideas. Cool. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add my technology and my goal to it. We want to create a musical VR experience using HTC Vive that allows communication between the audience and the performer. It will be a new environment, an organic sonic landscape that fans can explore and touch, where digital patterns control analog ideas. Okay, so basically we did our research, we set up some goals, and things are coming together, and now we actually know what we're going to build. So just around this time, it took, for some reason, a long time for us to get on the phone together. But we got to have a call with him. And if you can get a first-person interview with your artist, with your brand, and pick their brain, that's really the best. That's really what you want to do. And it's really important that you let your client speak. And that you don't pretend to have all the answers. Sometimes it's really tempting to kind of flaunt what you've done or your knowledge on a subject. But it's more important to listen to them. You have this rare time where they're telling you exactly what they want to do. So it's important to respect their outlook. But once you've done that, you have this other point of view. You're looking at a distance. And you might see things that they don't see. You might notice something about them that they don't. A lot of people tell me I'm tall. I think I'm regular. Anyway, so Zach actually suggested creating 4 spaces with different looks that would correspond to different musical themes. So that's really great for us because it actually matches up pretty closely to our original thinking. It's still a little broad, but only because we haven't really figured out at all what it's going to look like. So we go through our brainstorming process, and we try to figure out what are these environments. If I tell you I want an environment, what are you going to say you want? Because it could be anything. So see. I'm going to go to the next slide. Okay. Yeah. So what we do is we start using tools to help develop the idea. So we use Pinterest a lot. Anybody can use it. Some people use it for good and others for evil. And we use it for creating mood boards, which are a collection of images that help us understand the project. So here are some of our original influences. I don't know if you guys can see them back there, but they're kind of all over the place. No, go back. Okay, but but there are some things that keep popping up. There's a bunch of mountain ones. There's some water ones. You know, we had some kind of freaky forest and mushrooms. I love this album cover. Let's see, who is this guy? Christian Schupp was a designer in Germany who made this album cover, and kind of gonna give him credit and also use some of this idea in our experience, but I should give him shout outs. So what is the experience and how do we turn that inspiration into a definitive style? You know, what does it look like and what does it feel like? So another thing, you know, I have in the notes, it says here, remember that while experimenting with the Vive, we noticed that the more realistic you try to make your environment, the more you break the illusion. But I didn't say that part because I'm kind of improvising a little bit to try to be natural. So now pretend that I had told you that while we were experimenting with the Vive, we noticed that when people try to make really hyper-realistic stuff, it all looks fake, you know. So it's better to, you know, it's better to be kind of realistic and imply reality, because the technology has its limits. And you know, so we chose this image, and you know it's mountains. You can get a feeling that they're expansive. Has this foggy look. And you know, because we're creating this journey that we want the user to go on, we want them to explore, that really works for us. The other thing it does for us is that, you know, we're kind of short on time. We did this in between 2 and 3 weeks, which is kind of quick for a full-on project. So we only want to make what we have to make. So we kind of like fog out the edges so that you can't see that our world is really flat and limited. It looks like it just kind of goes so far that it fades out. And if we add a little color, now we have a visual filter that we can run our ideas through. So basically, we're going to take all of our inspirations. Here's some of the inspirations from Pinterest, a little bigger. And then we're going to run through our visual filter. And then we start to get what the experience actually came out like. So now we have all these organic elements. We have the mountains and the flags. But we had this quote from Zach, which was, it's all about improvisation and communication between the audience and the performer. So I'm looking at this and thinking, well, what am I going to touch in here? And is there a digital element? What about this says electronic music? We want to do something that really relates to him. So the flags, after looking at them, kind of remind me of something. I don't know if you guys are familiar with electronic music at all. This is a very classic drum machine, Roland 808. It's used on like every early hip hop song, but it's also used, Zach uses it a lot. And the flags really remind me of the step sequencer on the 808. So I'm going to use that idea, and we're going to trigger patterns when people hit the flags. We'll trigger light patterns, and it'll kind of echo this electronic instrument, even though it's an analog flag on a mountain. And we'll keep reusing this idea throughout our experiences. So now we have 3 more. We're going to do a desert one and a glacier. So these are our desert influences. And we put it through our visual filter, and we come up with this. So we have these floating rocks, and we have these little birdies. Um, and I really want to pound on those rocks. They kind of remind me of these iron bells, and maybe when those birds flap their wings, they're going to make little drum brush noises or little beeps. So they're going to give us some nice interaction. Here's the ice inspiration. I really love this photo. It's a real photograph, but it looks like something we would have made in Illustrator. It has these kind of perfect gradations. It's natural, but it's kind of has this, it seems digitally precise. And I feel like that really echoes Shigeto. So he has this natural sounds, and then he has these digital digital precision and sequencing. Through the visual filter, it looked like this. I don't know if I know you guys were there, but there were some changes. We had giant glaciers that people walked through in the end, and little fishies. But I had to write this a little beforehand so that it was all part of hitting the deadline. Yeah, and then I thought maybe we'll take some of these ice slabs, and I found this photo in Shigeto's studio of his vibraphone and thought, well, maybe we can make these vibraphone slabs into ice slabs. Okay, we have this forest world too, but it's really kind of like a crazy mushroom forest. So we put it through our visual filter, and we get this. So basically, again, we're setting all this stuff up. We make this filter, and then we're making all these different things from it, but we're running it through one idea. So if you do that work ahead of time, then you can keep using it over and over again, and it's going to define your project. So those mushroom stalks kind of remind me of this. I really want to pluck them. They also look like sine waves. So I think I've got all my elements now. I've got all these analog elements, digital elements. There's stuff that's going to be musical. I want one more thing, just to give a bit of a dynamic change, because you're walking through all these expansive environments. So I'm just going to add some tunnels between the environments. And that's going to do a couple things. One is it's going to give the musicians a chance to change it up a little bit. But the other thing is that it's going to give the user something different to experience. So they're walking through all these big mountains and valleys and things like that. But sometimes we're going to make them crouch down so that they can get through a tunnel. And that's going to make it feel even more real. So I think we have a product, except for we didn't build it yet. So we're going to build it. Do I have time to build it? I'm kind of running long, I think. Okay, so we're going to build it. The designs so far were built in Photoshop. We're going to make them 3D. Here's not 3D sketch, but it shows you how that you can quickly figure out what you want to do by just using a pencil. And then what we're going to do is change it into this. So here's where RA starts to take our ideas and put them into Cinema 4D. And we can see what they start to look like. So these are the things that people are going to be walking through. That's a cool jiggly mushroom. And here you can see us actually playing with it. So it's brand new technology. We've only been using it for a few weeks. We don't know what's going to work in design, so we have to keep looking. So luckily, our developer, Sarah, sits right next to us, and we can quickly pass her 3D models, and she lets us explore them in 3D. So we know what we're making. I mean, it's really fun to not know how to make something, but it's cool to have a tool so that you can see what you're doing. So she's using Unity 3D, which I think you can download for free, actually, if you guys want to play with it. Let's fail. Okay, so yeah, so basically, by having this interaction with Sarah, we can go through all our problems quickly. We had some environments that were too small, so the user could see over the edge. It totally broke the illusion. When we first started, the sun was super flat, and the sky seemed fake. We were walking through these tunnels, and we kept falling out of them, which is kind of disturbing when there's nothing below you but white space. And then those guys set up this movement style that they loved, but because I'm kind of twice as old as them, it made me feel super sick. So I didn't want everybody who's at least my age to feel super sick, so we kept playing with that and playing with it, and finally got it right. Yeah, so basically, we're talking, going back and forth, and it speeds up the process. Okay, so we're working. It's 2 weeks later, and of course, we're going to not just put it on the App Store or something like that. Let's take it out in front of, like, I don't know, a whole bunch of people. Let's see if it works the first time we try it. So, yeah, so this is kind of what happens.
It's a Unix system. I know this. It's all the files of the whole park. It tells you everything. I gotta find the right file.
Trying to reach the killer.
Yeah, so we have 5 minutes left before the show. It's like 3 minutes left. Getting there. Okay, 1 minute left, Sarah. Progress bar. Okay. So we started with nothing, but we got here to Intermitten, and now we have a fully functioning product. So we had designers, musicians, developers collaborating, but it came to life last night. All of you got to experience it, I hope, and I hope you had a good time in there. And you can use the process on any kind of tech project. Define your goals, do your research, mess around with stuff, and you can have something from nothing. So what I really hope the takeaway is, I hope this all kind of comes together in this like big arc of, story arc, I guess. But what I hope the takeaway is that you should play with new technology and twist it and turn it and throw your ideas at it. Because sometimes you can bring a new understanding to it and make connections that the people who created the technology haven't dreamed of yet. Everybody wants to be the creator, but sometimes building on it is what really connects it to real people and to artists, and helps people get closer to ideas. And that's it. I want to just give a huge shout out to Shigeto and Charles Trees. They played like longer than a Bruce Springsteen concert last night. It was like 3 hours of straight playing. I don't understand how they did it. But also Ari and Sarah and Sadie and Blondine. I just had the most amazing team, and that's how we were able to do this in 3 weeks. And thank you so much for having us.